Welcome to Happy Hour presented by Dr. Pepper, Ashley Adamson, Yogi Roth. Yogs, how we doing? It's Thanksgiving week. How you feeling, my man?
I'm good. I'm thankful for the teams that are ranked. I'm thankful for IG Live, our community, you. I don't know if I'm thankful about like how the community of the CFP ranked Louisville over Washington State, but I'm sure we'll get into that.
We'll get into that. That's what we're here for. And I just want to say I'm living dangerously because I just got a low power mode alert on my phone. So this is, just let it ride. Let it ride. So if I go away, you guys will know why. Okay, so let's get to the rankings. And yeah, I think we can say, let's start with the top four: Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, TCU. I don't think any surprises there. It is annoying that LSU is ahead of USC at number 5. They're 9-2. They played UAB, the Blazers. They got by the Blazers this weekend, while USC was off beating UCLA in an epic battle in the Rose Bowl. But USC is 6, and I think, well, let's start right there, because I think at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. It's annoying, but it doesn't really matter given what's at stake and what is to come in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing is certain value based on certain opponents that aren't common, right? So let's just talk about LSU. Their last 4, right, in terms of when they played Ole Miss, because I think they're getting a lot of credit. They said it in that. They said Alabama and Ole Miss. It was Boo Gordon is what he said. So I said, all right, let me just check out and see what our friend Lane has done at Ole Miss. He's still currently the head coach there, by the way. Check out Twitter if you missed that last night. But Ole Miss's last 4, they lost to LSU. They got rolled. They beat a really bad A&M team by 3 on the road. They lost to Bama. They lost to Arkansas. They beat Kentucky by 3 earlier this year, who lost to Vanderbilt. Like, I just think when we're comping things, and if the Ole Miss is really giving them juice, like I get the Alabama win, but it seemed like, at least his words, not mine, Ole Miss and Alabama better than Oregon State, UCLA. I challenge that. Like, I really challenge that. And then I look at LSU. Yes, they beat a Tennessee team. They beat Alabama, but Arkansas was a bad game, right? 13-10, bad game. Like, and then to your point of like an embarrassment to the sport of UAB and the rest of the games in that conference, or at least a few of those games in that conference last week, they were just unfortunate. But that's where I netted out of, like, they're clearly giving credit to the Ole Miss team. So Mike Leach, do a solid, maybe in the Egg Bowl. If you could beat Lane this weekend, that'll help, because I think there's the obvious scenario that we're looking at here is if LSU is able to win the SEC title, what would that do to USC? What I'd be curious about is, like, if USC, and this is where I push back on the top 4, if USC was, let's say this was year 3 in Lincoln Riley, there's more body of work. And I get we're not supposed to take last year into consideration or previous years, but I think that happens, right? You look at Clemson, you look at Alabama. I think that if you looked at this past weekend and looked at USC's game against UCLA and you looked at Michigan's game against Illinois, you would have to say, I think anybody in that room would say SC looked better.
Yeah.
UCLA is definitely better than Illinois. So if you're living in the week-to-week world, which they say they are, which I don't necessarily agree with, then I was interested to see, well, is SC going to jump? Are they going to jump? 1-point loss on the road to Utah on an emotional night. Like, I just don't think enough credit is given to that or to them. But to your point, they got a ranked Notre Dame team this weekend at the Coliseum, and they got a ranked conference title game.
Yeah, Notre Dame's number 15 in this latest poll. And again, just to underscore what Boo Corrigan said, he talked about the wins that you mentioned, but he also said some members of the committee wanted to see more from USC's defense, which, as he noted, gave it 45 points to DTR and UCLA. And we're going to talk about that game. We're going to talk about Caleb for the Heisman, because he's the leader in the clubhouse, I would say, at this point. But let's get through the rest of these rankings. So you've got USC at number 6, Oregon at number 9, Washington 13, Utah 14, UCLA 18, and Oregon State is now 21. I want to get your thoughts on those. But the thing that jumps out to me, just like looking at this, Yogs, is that the 3 highest ranked Pac-12 teams are all being led by first-year coaches. You got Lincoln Riley, Dan Lanning, and Kalen DeBoer, who, by the way, just signed a contract extension today that goes through 2028. Good job, Jen Cohen.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating. It's going to put so much more pressure on the next first-year head coaches, right, at Arizona State and Colorado, because it happens so fast.
Yeah, the turnaround's real.
But it also, like, we have something coming out this week on the Pac-12 Network's our Coach of the Year. Like, who are you going to vote for? And I think that you look at everybody that is ranked, other than, I'd say, UCLA right now, like, all of those head coaches are in consideration for Coach of the Year.
Who would you vote for? Not to cut you off, but like, who's your vote right now?
If it was today, I'd go Lincoln Riley. I'm curious about Kalen DeBoer. Both teams took 4-8 programs over, right? That's why I think they edge out Dan Lanning. Dan Lanning's had to deal with way more off the field with the loss of Spencer Webb prior to the season. But if Utah can get to the title game and win, I go them. Like, I'm kind of going to go winner. And then there's always Jonathan Smith if things kind of get crazy. Like, they got a chance for a 10-win season. Think about that, where that came from in year one 5 years ago to today.
Well said. Well said. All right. So I cut you off though, but your big takeaway when you look at the rest of, the other 6 teams, or the 6 teams total netting out in the latest CFP, what's your big takeaway?
Well, I think I'm still annoyed by Penn State for the second week in a row where they lie versus Washington. I'd say the same thing for Tennessee. Like, again, if you're looking at this thing with reality of what you saw Tennessee lose their quarterback for the rest of the season. Hate to see that happen, but you're looking at the nation's leading passer in Michael Penix Jr. So another stage for him. I was also annoyed. And I'm very thankful this week, but just to be blunt on the CFP where my annoyances lie, Louisville sitting at 7-4. I mean, they lost.
I think that surprised a lot of people.
Yeah, and again, I go to they beat an NC State team that is on a backup quarterback. They didn't look great in that ball game. They lost to a Boston College team that we all know lost to, I think, our good friend Jim Mora at UConn, right? They haven't looked great at all this season. So I'm just kind of confused on the back half of this thing, because I look at Washington State, and while like the Wisconsin win may not mean as much as it does now as it did then, their Oregon loss is better than Louisville's loss to a ranked team. And I just didn't see any consistency there. And that was frustrating. And it should be frustrating for Washington State fans. I think they're getting left out of the conversation right now. And I think it'll impact a lot of things. You got the Apple Cup ranked UW team. And then I think when you start comparing wins and losses, which this may come down to, I think what Washington State did against Oregon, if Oregon's in the title game, Washington State and whomever may be in the title game, maybe it's Utah, maybe it's Washington. I think it matters. So I'd be really curious again who the next 5 were. I'd imagine Washington State was in that conversation.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think I'd love to see Washington State and Louisville play.
No
I don't
doubt.
think there's, that is what it is. And I agree. I don't think the Cougars get enough love. They're 7-2 when Nakia Watson plays. He is a difference maker. And obviously since he's come back, they've been a different team. And their defense is as good as anybody in our league. And I think it's going to be fun to watch. I'm going to go into the Apple Cup. I'm like right now packing up all my long johns, trying to find 18 coats that I can get in my bag, because that's going to be a good one. It's supposed to be maybe a little bit of snow, a lot of wind. It's going to be cold. So any of you Cougs and Huskies fans who are going to be up in Pullman this weekend, the road show is going to be there. So I'm looking forward to that.
So to that point, Ash, like think about Louisville. I think it's worth beating this up a little bit. They lost by 15 to Clemson. You look at Washington State, all 4 of their losses are teams that are currently ranked. 2 of their losses by 4 points or less. Like, you go back and watch the Oregon game. Like, I get that Oregon moved the ball up and down the field, but Washington State jumped all over them, and I think had the lead up until the last whatever it was at the game when Oregon eventually wins that thing. So I just want to like put a lens and a light on what Washington State's doing. Right, they're up in Pullman. Look, I'd rather be in Pullman than in Louisville. I'll tell you that 10 out of 10 times. But I think for the committee, and what's great is Rick George is on the committee. We talked to him last week calling the Colorado game. Like he's very connected to that committee and make sure they know what the deal is about the Pac-12. And we try to present what the reality is around the Pac-12. So we'll see. I think it's important to watch them this weekend. If they're able to get the win or even a tight game, can they sneak their way into the top 25?
And I just want to say thank you to everyone who's leaving comments and questions. I just saw somebody say "Go Cougs" from a Duck fan, which reminded me that maybe we should go through the scenarios here for how everybody gets in. We know USC is in. They clinched with their win over UCLA. But here, let's just go through the scenarios real quick. Oregon needs to beat Oregon State or have the Cougs beat the Huskies. Washington needs to obviously win the Apple Cup. They need Oregon State to beat Oregon, and either a Utah loss to Colorado or a Cal win over UCLA. So a lot needs to happen there. And then Utah's path doesn't feel crazy to me. They need to beat Colorado. They need to have UCLA beat Cal. Oregon State needs to beat Oregon. That's the only team that won't be favored in this. And then Washington needs to beat Washington State. So Oregon controls their own destiny, as much as I know we don't like that phrase because you don't ever control your own destiny, but they're in the driver's seat. But Washington and Utah, weirder things have happened, certainly on the last weekend of the Pac-12 season.
Yeah, and look, we heard from Bo Nix earlier today where he said like he's good to go. And of course he's going to say that. You go back and you watch that game, what a gutty performance. You know,
Oh,
there was a time where he was getting sacked and he just kind of fell to the ground, right? He very rarely was in a passing posture, knees bent, athletic stance because he just couldn't be. You know, he said he had to just be a true pocket guy. Well, against Oregon State, I don't know if that's going to work very well. Like now, Utah brings a lot of pressure too, and they had a great game plan for that. They'll have one as well. But Trent Bray, if you're going to put somebody up for defensive coordinator of the year in our league, to me, he'd get my vote as of today, heading into the
yep.
final weekend of the season. He's going to have something, right? And we know that Oregon will as well. So, pending the weather, there's so many elements that I think will impact this game. I wouldn't be shocked if Oregon State won at home. The place, as you know, you've been there this year, is crazy with half the stadium. It's hectic. It's hard for an opponent. And also for Oregon, I wouldn't be shocked if they won, right? They're a veteran team. They played defensively their best game of the season. Thought against Utah, batting balls, finding balls, opportunistic, coming off a challenging game where they lost against UW. So I don't know which way it'll go. If it comes down to quarterback play, Ben Gilbranson is going to have to deal, and his wideouts are going to have to make plays down the field.
Yeah, it's going to be a great game. I think we can agree on that. I think we got to give Oregon, and you mentioned it, but just my hat's off to the way that they came back from what was a devastating loss to Washington. And Dan Lanning said it. We're not going to let the Huskies beat us twice. We didn't let Georgia beat us twice. We're not going to let the Huskies beat us twice. So they come out. And it was, you could tell Bo Nix was exactly how you said. He was not 100%. They didn't have Alex Forsyth. I think that's something that we probably don't talk about enough in terms of what that does to the offensive line and kind of the leader of that group and the cadence and everything else. And I just think that it's been the defense that has been the issue for them, and for the way that they stepped up. They made Cam Rising had his worst game as a starter. I mean, I think it would be hard to find a different game where I feel like he looked less like himself than Saturday night in Eugene.
Yeah, just finished prepping for the Colorado game this weekend on the Pac-12 networks, and of course they're playing Utah. And since SC, Cam Rising has not looked the same. His efficiency has dropped. 2 out of the last 3 games, he's been in the 50s in terms of completion percentage. Just something's off, right? And to me, to be a total dork here, like when you throw, everything starts at your feet. So I love the phrase like ground force equals rotational force. So if you're a golfer, if you're a baseball player, like you understand that. Like your hips are everything, but it starts at your feet. And I don't think he's creating a lot of energy as a passer, and you're seeing balls die or not be on like the spot where they normally are. I expect him to come back and have a great game. And I think we'd assume this is final regular season game for Utah, right? Like I don't anticipate him coming back. So I'm excited to watch them play because their defense, they're in the conversation for playing the best football right now. I think Oregon State, Wazoo, and them are the top 3 defenses in this league. Utah hasn't done it all year. They've been building, but man, do they look good against the Ducks. And if they're able to win and get some help, it's going to be a hell of a rematch. Second year in a row where it's rematch city for the Utah Utes.
Who do you in your heart believe is going to be playing USC in Vegas?
It's hard because I don't know who's going to be healthy. But if I go on kind of what I anticipate, I think it's Oregon. I think it's going to be an awesome game, but I think that their ability to be explosive and score. So here's a number for you. Heading into last week's games in the Pac-12 conference, the winner scored 38 points, average 38 points. Now, Oregon didn't get that last week, but their offense has been rolling throughout the majority of this season. I don't think it's going to be easy against the defense, but I think the Beavs got to score in this game. Now, they did last week. They'll get defensive players back. I think we anticipate. They'll get a bunch of players back. We anticipate. So I think you're going to get a great game, but I think like the winner is going to have to score like 35 plus. And I think I just trust Oregon more to do that. But I will not be shocked by any stretch if the Beavs win and if Utah finds their way to the title game. And I think the sleeper game of the week is honestly Friday, which is UCLA and Cal.
Yes.
Like Cal's played well they lead against Oregon before the end of the half. Terrible in the middle 8. SC controlling the game. Terrible in the middle 8, the last 4 minutes of the second, first 4 minutes of the third. And those games get away from them. Like, what do they do now? New life, new staff. Like they're going to cut it loose. We don't know the health of Dorian Thompson-Robinson coming into the game. Like, short week. I don't know. Like that to me is going to be a game that we'll clearly be glued to.
Yeah, I will say I got to be at the big game on Saturday, and it was awesome. It was exactly what the fact that we were able to be in Eugene for Oregon, Washington the week before, and then in Berkeley for the big game, the 125th big game. It was the 40th anniversary of the play, so all those guys from the 1982 squad were there, and it was sold out, and it didn't matter that both teams had not great seasons and have been disappointing in a lot of different ways because it just felt big the entire time. And I'm sitting next to Shane Vereen in the press box, and he's, I wouldn't say being like an unbiased college football analyst in that moment. He was sweating it, and they were down 11 in the fourth quarter. They don't have on record the last time that a team in the big game was down 11 in the fourth quarter and came back and won. So Jackson Sermon, hat off to you, my man, and Daniel Scott with that pick at the end. We had Justin Wilcox and those two players on the set afterwards. And, your heart hurts for David Shaw and that terrific staff and those players, because they're all just salt of the earth, good humans who were playing their butts off. And I think honestly gave it everything that they had and ran out of gas. But you saw the emotion, and Justin you could tell it had been a really hard week. He had never fired a coach before he let go of his offensive coordinator, Bill Musgrave, and his offensive line coach, Angus McClure. So I think there was a lot of emotion, and I think he was just so happy for the guys. And it's a reminder that these rivalry games, like, that is what is great about college football. And that is what scares me with all the realignment stuff, that you just can't lose these matchups because they mean something no matter what else happens throughout the year. And I think we'll see that with the Territorial Cup on Friday as well. I mean, Arizona and ASU are two great examples of that. You win that game, and the bitterness of whatever you wish the season had been, it tastes a little bit better.
Yeah, no, I co-sign on that. I want to know where you're going this weekend before, well, you're going to the Apple Cup. I want to hear your thoughts about going to that. But I do want to say to the teams that aren't going bowling, like the two teams in the Territorial Cup, like Colorado, a lot of teams are going bowling this year, but there's a handful that aren't. Today was Tuesday, your practice is over. When you get into Wednesday, and I remember this, Ashley, it's the last Wednesday practice of your football life.
Yeah.
Like just enjoy it. Because I think, like, even going to Boulder this week, like, there's a world where you're like, all right, just get it over with. Like, but to the seniors there, like, to even to the underclassmen, like, this group will never exist again. So I just say, like compete your what off, to lean into the joy, to the fun, to the connection, to the camaraderie, to the practice, to the competition, because it's the last one. And I would do anything to get a Wednesday practice. Right?
Yeah.
And so would Shane Vereen or Coach Aliotti or Nigel or any of our people. Like, we'd love that. And it's going to be over in a blink. Like, Saturday will come and go, and we will be talking title game and 2 new coaching hires this time next week. So to the players, hang on to it.
Well said, Yogs. Beautifully said, as always. All right, I feel like we got a million more things we need to talk about, but
I have
go
a question.
ahead. Yes.
How are you preparing for the Apple Cup? Like, are you going, like, how many hand warmers? Like, you got a long day. Like, you're on early. We got an early game. It's an early kick.
Yeah, the schedule didn't quite do us any favors, but hey, we got more time to talk about the sport that we love, so I'm all for it. Yeah, our pregame coverage starts at noon from Pullman, and we will be on throughout the day periodically doing different shows and halftimes through the end of Pac-12 After Dark, which signs off at midnight. So it'll be a fun day on the Palouse. And yeah, I'm trying to figure out, I don't know exactly. Nigel Burton just sent me an Amazon link for, like, I didn't know that there are you can buy gloves that are heated. Same with socks. You can buy, like, heated socks. I have a heated vest. Elise Woodward, shout out to her. She gave me that tip when I saw her in Eugene last weekend. But yeah, I don't know that I'm fully prepared. And the fact that I'm leaving at 6 a.m. the day after Thanksgiving, we'll see what happens.
Have you ever been to an Apple Cup? Is this your first one in person?
No, I've never been to an Apple Cup.
Oh my God, they're so good.
So excited.
So I'll just go down memory lane, because why not?
Okay.
So in 2009, I shot a documentary on Jake Locker. UW fans, you remember him. Jake Locker. The documentary is called 3 for the Show. Check it out. We followed Jake his whole senior year. This guy was going to be a top 5 draft pick, decided to come back. There was a doc on him, Cam Newton, and Tyrod Taylor heading into the draft. So we're there with our crew. I'm like 26, I think, at the time, and just, totally dialed in, right? No clue what I'm doing. And I had been to Pullman as a coach, but I'd never been to this rivalry. I just left coaching. So I'm there, and it is very similar to the conditions you're going into, except there was a ton of snow, like dumping snow. which of course in the evening turned into hardcore ice. So I can remember the bands and the amount of trash talking and the snowballs. Like it was epic. And it was a back and forth game, and Washington State ended up pulling it out. And I remember just looking up in Martin Stadium and just saying, whoa, like I had only seen like SC UCLA, SC Notre Dame. And to experience that at that age just is never going to leave me. And watching those players off the field that lost and then had won kind of gives you chills. And then who can't forget Gardner Minshew walking off the field in tears, back in the day when they had a chance to have a special season. So I can't wait to hear about what it's like for you at around 1 a.m, whenever you sign off.
I'll be giving you a call. Maybe we can jump on IG Live because there'll be a lot to talk about, I think, on Saturday night. Yeah, no, I'm excited. And I just have to say, Washington State, every time we go there, it's one of my favorite campuses to visit. People always ask, like, oh, what's your favorite school? I love them all. But and people always look at me like, Pullman, really? It's true. That community, it eats and breathes and lives for the Cougs. And going to a big time game on a Saturday in the cold, like, you can't beat it. So I have appreciated all the tips. I saw there were a lot of tips about just bring warm gloves and whiskey. Perfect.
Hey,
and Jim Thornby's right. Nigel Burton loves the cold. He thrives in the cold.
There's a certain drink that they love in the tailgate over there. It's Fireball.
Yeah, I was just gonna say.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Yeah, I've been in a tailgate post game a few times, and it'll warm you up if you need a little something.
Yeah. Okay. Good to know. Good to know. At that point, it's the last week of the season. The next time we're going to be doing this, we're going to be in Vegas, I think.
Warm, very warm. Yeah, indoors.
Very warm. It's going to be good. We'll know who's playing his Pac-12 championship and have a million storylines to talk about then. I guess the last thing that I will ask you, because we didn't get to this and I teased that we would, Caleb Williams, his performance on Saturday as the front runner now for the Heisman. And I think there's just so many, he does it all. What would be give me your Cliff's Notes version on Caleb Williams for the Heisman?
Well, as we wave to our friends at Utah, you saw it in that game, the competitive excellence, he versus Cam Rising. You saw it at the end of the Oregon State game. You and I were both there. When it was needed, he rose up. He didn't, let a struggling performance bury him. You've seen it when they've lost teammates, to injury. Offense, defensively, he said, just come on my back. I got you, no problem. And then when they went to the Rose Bowl, they're down early. He doesn't flinch. And I just think his makeup is one that is what the Heisman's about. Now, I don't know if he's going to win it. Now, as a voter, I'm not going to be like the sad 15% of voters in 2015 who voted prior to the Pac-12 title game. Because I think Bo Nix is in the mix for this. I think if Michael Penix Jr. gets some luck, like, we got to talk about him as the nation's leading passer. I don't think anybody is in rare air in the country. But what Caleb did and what is in everybody's mind needs to be at the forefront because he carried them. I mean, it just felt like such an epic championship game. Like, it felt like, because maybe it was the Rose Bowl, but it felt like Texas SC back in the day with Vince Young and Matt Leinart, like blow for blow. And I just think that when it gets hard, Ash, he welcomes it. Like, he's like, okay, let's ride. Let's go again. And that, you've seen it just bleed throughout the entire program. He's got great humility. He does all the things that you want off the field. He's a one percenter. Like, he truly is. So I'd love to see somebody from the league win it. I'd love to see him win it. And he's got another stage. We've seen Carson Palmer do it against Notre Dame. We've seen Leinart do it against Notre Dame. This is another chance. And I don't think he'll over-try because his system is built for him to thrive. And I expect him to do it. I think you and I should book our flights to New York and let's go.
Done. If you say it on Happy Hour presented by Dr. Pepper, that means it comes to fruition. So I'm in. Yeah, no, he is. And the stage will be big. USC, Notre Dame, top 15 showdown at the Coliseum, 4:30 on ABC on Saturday. That's going to be a fun one. Our pregame coverage, as I think I mentioned, begins at noon from the Palouse. We'll be there all day, all night. I hope anybody who's there comes say hello to us. And I just want to leave with actually a couple shout outs. I got a couple shout outs that I wanted to get to. One, Jim Thornby, we mentioned him earlier. He has been crunching scenarios for this FCG like day and night. It's like what he eats and breathes and sleeps. And then he has to communicate them to all the annoying media people like us who ask him repeatedly for all these different scenarios. So shout out to you, Jim. I'm grateful for you. Shout out to Jen Cohen for getting that extension done with Kalen DeBoer. Great hire. Excited to see what the future of the Huskies are underneath him. And then I want to say shout out to Joe Starkey, the voice of Cal football, who after Friday will be hanging it up after 48 years. It's hard to imagine Cal football without Joe Starkey. And he's called the play. So the most famous play in college football history has his voice on it. So hope he enjoys that last game. I'm sure it'll be emotional, but anytime somebody who is that good and has been doing this for that long, hat tip to you, Joe Starkey.
Okay, you got to give one piece of advice, Ash.
Yeah.
It's Thanksgiving. Like I'm curious, like, do you have a go-to? And like, what do you recommend that people must have on a Thursday? Like, you can't go.
Here is my Thanksgiving recommendation. As we are now hosting Thanksgiving for the second or third year in a row, just like buy the turkey, warm it up. I've made I have not made. Chris, my husband, has made a lot of different turkeys. I've helped. The one that we got last year from Whole Foods that was cooked, that we just warmed up for 2 hours, it was the best turkey we've ever had. So just decide what you're going to, it's energy management. It is all about energy management. So don't spend your time making, my mom has this recipe for green beans and they're like, it's like a 10-hour recipe. And I'm like, there's still freaking green beans. Like, don't spend the energy on the green beans. I really like canned cranberry sauce. That's one of my favorites.
If Pat Chun is watching right now, you better deliver that to the set with Ashley and Bill Stevens.
Yeah,
canned cranberry sauce.
All class over here. But yeah, I don't know. I'm more about like the wine and the dessert, and just eat turkey and mashed potatoes and stuffing. Give it to me all. I love it. But yeah, I just love Thanksgiving. It is one of I think it might be my favorite holiday. It really is, because there's football on. You're home. There's no presents. You're just eating. What's your go-to?
Well, I'm the baker. I'm the baker in the family. So I usually skip dinner as a vegetarian. I'll have like a side or two, but I pretty much do like every dessert multiple times. So I'll be on that. I'll start tomorrow. You know, like our neighbor just had a baby, so I'll practice. They'll get the first one. If you're listening, I'm sorry. Like, you'll get the first pie just to make sure that it's right. And then I'll make a couple more. And here's the thing that I love most about it is I've gotten older. I'm going to do what my parents did to me, which was like all the kids when I was growing up, all the cousins had to do skits. So now we've got people coming over. So skits are happening. So I want to see, oh yeah. Yeah, whatever it is you want to be. You want to sing, you want to dance. We usually have a dance party, put like some glow sticks on and like have a full-on blowout with a bunch of 7-year-olds. But tomorrow or Thursday, they don't even know it. Skits are coming down. You gotta elevate. I'm
coming to your house for Thanksgiving next year.
Matt Barkley, you should come to our house too. Let's go, baby.
Okay, happy Thanksgiving to you, Yogi. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone who hangs out with us. I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful for the Pac-12. I'm grateful for all of the amazing people that we get to meet every single weekend on campuses. Truly, we love you guys. And that's all I got. I think, I mean, there's like 8,000 more things that we can talk about, but my phone is literally about to die. So I think we have to wrap it up.
Amen. Well, I'm grateful for the committee for putting Washington State in next week over Louisville.
Amen.
Thanks.
Speak it into existence.
There you go.
Bye, everybody. We'll see you next week. Enjoy Thanksgiving.